We are back. It is a Thursday edition, a Thirsty Thursday, a Thursday Night Football edition. Joseph's got some college football on the corner of his screen tonight. He's a little glared out, though, because he lost one of his contacts. I'm Greg Bonner, along with our co-host, which is that way. Nope, that way. There we go.
There you go.
Yeah, we got the virtual screen going. My man Joseph Guthrie is to my left. And we're hanging out with you for about an hour or so. We're going to talk some college football. We've got NFL on tap, college football playoff rankings, our core four matchups that we're going to get into. And there's also some other games that didn't make our core four list, but they're worth the honorable mention for sure. Make sure you're following us all over social media at Chatted Up Sports, wherever you get your podcasts as well, at Chatted Up Sports as well. 5 stars, nothing less. Make sure you tell a friend. Please make sure you leave a review. You can say whatever you want about us, and as long as it's 5 stars, I don't give a damn. Anyways, it was a great time last night, Big J. How you feeling after the road trip to Birmingham and visiting with Knight Edie, going a chance to see the CM Newton Classic, excuse me, and getting a chance to see some college basketball. You and I were chopping it up a little bit, and I was teaching you a little something about basketball, which was fun.
Yeah, man. It's always fun to hang out with Michael and Edie. They're great to us, and I appreciate them being so open and willing to have us come down. But I kind of went to school last night, man. I'm not the most well versed in basketball. I'll be the first person to tell you that. I'm not going to sit here and act like I can dissect the game and tell you who's going to beat who, but thought, this is a good opportunity for me to ask some questions and learn. And you taught me a couple of things, and I'm slowly starting to build my basketball knowledge. Mm-hmm. Have a new appreciation for the game, because that was a really, really good atmosphere, in my opinion, for what was, I guess, technically a neutral site game, even though we're still in the state of Alabama. I mean, it's like when Georgia plays in Atlanta, or when like Florida plays in like Tampa or something. It's a neutral site game, but it's not really. But really, really, really good atmosphere. So new appreciation for college basketball, and kind of eager to learn more about the sport and get into it. So had a good time last night. Had a good time.
I know Anthony Edwards is not walking through the Georgia Bulldogs locker room anytime soon. But do you think you're going to get into some Georgia basketball? Is there another team you might want to follow that you might be excited about?
It'd be all dogs. I've actually, I've been starting to follow the basketball team a little bit. They signed a 5-star. He's a freshman, Asa Newell's playing, and he's from what I've seen, he's lived up to the hype. So, they're pretty good in terms of what Georgia basketball is. They've done pretty good this year. They've opened up stronger than other years. So we'll see. By no means am I expecting them to make some kind of run, but I'm very much in the mindset where it's like, if we somehow make the tournament, that's a successful season for me.
Yeah.
Because you're building. You got to build these things. It's not something that just happens overnight. So, but I got faith in Mike White to put Georgia basketball back in a good spot, and we'll see what happens.
I played with a guy in college. His name was Mike White, so I always think of whenever I hear Mike White.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I was thinking that. Imagine. Wait, is it the same? No,
definitely not. Definitely not Mike. Not my Mike White. That would be pretty wild. But yeah, good times all around last night and yesterday out in Birmingham at the Legacy Arena. Really nice arena, like you were talking about, Jay. Like, just a good environment for sure. But it is still football season, so we're going to talk some football here. And we haven't really gotten an opportunity to talk about the college football playoff. Now, Chase and I did when we went on with Gino on Hits 96 on Wednesday, yesterday. Mm-hmm. We recorded something and we talked a little bit about it. But you and I have not really gotten an opportunity to talk about it. And we have not talked about it with our listeners as well, because they come out on Tuesday. We do our show on Monday, which is not the best. What's up? Welcome in. Oh, no. Jeez Louise. All right. Sorry, I'm trying to share it around on different social medias, what we're doing. And for whatever reason, Facebook was going a little bit slow, but it is what it is. Yeah.
All right.
So
that happens.
We haven't gotten a chance to you and I talk about the college football playoff, so I'm going to shut up and I'm going to try to figure things out on my end. And I want to hear your thoughts on what went right and what went wrong, because in my estimation, I feel like there was a lot more wrong than there was right with the college football rankings and how the committee is going about this first year of 12 teams. Like, are we too harsh on them, or do we need to give them a little leeway, or is it just like, hey, we got to figure this shit out?
I think it's a mix of, if they would just come out and say, this is what we're looking for, or if there was any kind of consistency, or if it felt like there was any kind of consistency in how they chose to rank teams, maybe people wouldn't be as frustrated. But, where a lot of the frustration that on my part comes from, and I'm assuming other people's as well, is, they talk in the preseason about how we're going to value strength of schedule. We're going to rate, we're going to bring all these factors in, and we're going to use these as tools to rank the teams, and we're going to watch the teams, and we're going to watch the film. They say they're going to watch the film. But from what I can see, it looks like it's all record based. Like, it doesn't really matter who you've played, where you've played, when you played them. Like, it seems like they're giving all these reasons why they would want to rank or why they're ranking teams a certain way, and then they're just not doing that. Like, the inconsistencies for me feel like with Penn State and Indiana, they seem very similar in terms of strength of schedule, or in terms, but their records are different. Penn State has we played Ohio State close. Indiana, with all respect to Indiana, because and again, love what Kurt Cignetti's doing, they haven't exactly played any notable teams. The best teams they've played are probably Washington and Nebraska and Michigan. And Michigan's kind of down this year. Nebraska's starting a freshman quarterback. Dylan Raiola's kind of been up and down. That's a team that's still trying to figure it out. Washington, they lost pretty much their whole team and their head coach after last year, so they're trying to find their way. They don't really have like a signature game to hang themselves on. And then when you compare them to Penn State, it's like, well, Penn State doesn't really have. They beat USC and they beat West Virginia, but they don't really have this clear-cut better win than Indiana does. But Indiana's ranked behind them, and they're 10-0. And they're about to play Ohio State, and we can factor that in with common opponents then. So we're choosing to rank Penn State over Indiana there, but then we're not choosing to do the same thing with Alabama and Ole Miss and Georgia, as opposed to Notre Dame. Notre Dame's 9-1. They have by far, and I've said it before, I'll say it again, they have by far the worst loss out of any of the playoff teams. It's not really close. You lose at home as a 28-point favorite. I'm going to keep saying it because it can't be overstated. That's a big deal. Whereas Georgia's played, 5 top 15, top 20 teams. Tennessee's played 3 or 4 top 15, top 20 teams. Like, they're not factoring. So they're looking at these teams and they're just like, well, you lost more games than Notre Dame. And Notre Dame, they do have the Texas A&M win. They do have that. So it's not like I'm sitting here saying Notre Dame doesn't have a signature win at all. They do have that one. That's one. But they have one less loss and they have one less signature win, but yet they're just, because they've been beating up on these significantly weaker teams, they're just being slotted higher.
This is part of sort of what I've heard. I don't mean to interrupt you there. I think what they put value on also is these good teams in how badly they beat up on the bad teams. Like, how much you're able to like pound a bad team. Is that correct?
Well, it's less about being able to beat up on bad teams, and it's more about what I would call playing to your own standard. So, like, we've seen good teams that we thought were really good, and it turns out they just played a bad schedule. And then we've also seen teams that we thought were really good, played a bad schedule, and turned out to be really good, but they were just handling business, as people phrase it. They were crushing these like inferior teams, but they couldn't help what their schedule was. It's kind of like what Indiana has done up until this point. They have pretty soundly, outside of the Michigan game, beaten these inferior teams.
Yeah.
And it's like they're doing exactly what they're supposed to do, but now you've got a game coming up where you're playing somebody that I don't want to say has a pulse, because I feel like it's disingenuous to say that none of these other teams had a pulse, but is definitely, a higher standard of game versus who else you've played. So I just want to see some consistency. Like, realistically, that's what I want to see. Like, I want to see them give reasons to for these teams to schedule big games, because right now, the way I'm looking at it, if I'm one of these big boy teams, I mean, outside of the SEC, it's going to be kind of hard because the conference is so deep. It's just going to be hard to avoid playing top 25 teams. I don't see why Georgia would want to schedule Clemson. I don't see why Georgia has Florida State on the schedule later. They have Ohio State on the schedule later. I mean, if you're Ohio State, why do you want to play Georgia? I mean, because what we've seen from this committee, it doesn't look like you're going to get rewarded for that.
No, you're not. You're simply not. Like that. It makes so much sense what you're saying, and it's like it takes away from the viewership, because what do we want as consumers of college football? We want the best games possible. I would rather all of these big conferences literally just play each other, because to me that would be much more entertaining, and then we parse it out that way. Instead, it's like, well, we got to go out there. We got to see, Georgia beat up on Little Caesars U, and then, Domino Tech, and, the School for the Blind, and all this other stuff. Like, I don't want to see Tennessee in the second to last week of the season. No disrespect to UTEP, but I don't want to see them play UTEP. Like, that doesn't interest me at all. Like, if I miss the game on Saturday, I don't care, because that game's of no interest. Like, they should railroad them 50-3. And if they don't, it's a huge disappointment.
Yeah, and it's one of those. It's not just the timing of the game. Like, I know it is the end of the season, so you want to see better games, but a lot of people tend to pick on the SEC for that specifically. Because the SEC has done this where in late November they typically schedule like a tune-up game for most of their schools. And it's consistently something that I see get picked on by other conferences. But Ohio State, they were irrelevant until October. So they did the same thing. They just played them all in September. So what I want to see is better games. People get rewarded for better games.
Yes.
And you not get absolutely screwed because you chose to play a higher ranked team for entertainment purposes.
You should get rewarded.
100%. You should. And it's something else too that I'm worried about is we've seen the Lane Kiffin comments about how he's talked to other coaches and they don't want to play in the conference title game. And I don't blame them personally, because if we want teams to care about their conference title games, because that's becoming a point of emphasis, that's becoming something that people are kind of getting concerned about, is it's like, well, hey, teams and coaches are stopping to care about conference title games. It's like, okay, well, there's an easy fix for this. There's a real easy fix for this. Before conference title games happen, you pick your field of 12, and that's your field of 12. And what you do is say Texas and Alabama play in the SEC title game, and Alabama, if they were to lose, say Texas wins out and Alabama were to lose that game, and then they're a 3-loss team, it's like, okay, well, you were slotted at 7th. You're going to stay at 7th. Yeah, you're going to stay there.
Yeah.
Because you played an extra game that all these other schools didn't have to play, and you're not going to get punished for that. And then simply all you would have to do is if Alabama beat Texas, you just swap them. Texas drops to 7th, Bama takes that first round bye. And people are like, I could see people coming in and saying like, okay, what about a year in the Big 12 where, they end up having 2 teams, and those 2 teams that make the conference title game are probably the only 2 teams that have a shot for them to get 2 in the playoff. And it's like, okay, well, whichever one of those teams that's ranked higher, if they lose, you just swap them out. You can just flip-flop these teams. Same thing with the Big 10. Whoever wins, you just flip their positions. If their second place guy in the conference titles ranked 10th and they win, they get the bye. The other team goes to 10th. Like, there's a way that you could game this system and figure this out to where teams don't have to be necessarily pulling for the idea of skipping the conference title game.
As somebody who works in college athletics, I think it's absolutely ludicrous that we're putting a damper on a conference championship, where coaches are saying, I don't even know if I want to play in it.
Yeah.
Like, I get, like, I'm in the Southern Conference. You know, it does not mean as much as the SEC or the Big 10 or the Big 12, whatever. It's not a major conference like that, obviously. But, like, that shit should mean something. And I think your idea there is a great one, you know?
Yeah.
And they should do away with automatic bids for winning a conference championship game.
Auto bids need to be gone. Like, it's just a bad system. It's just it screws with what the purpose of the playoff is, and that's to crown a real champion. In my opinion, that's what it screws with, that the integrity of us finding out who really is the best team in college football. Because a lot of these teams that actually have a shot to make a title run could get left out for teams that just happen to play in a conference that someone had to win.
Yeah, we can't hold it against teams for playing an extra game in the conference championship game. You simply can't do it. Again, it should be it should be like it should be a positive that you got there. You were one of the best two teams in your conference. You got there. And if you're in the mix, cool. You know, and you finish second, you lose that game, you should get a real shot to still be in the college football playoff. If you're in that ranking, like you said, like, it should not take you out of that ranking because you lost a conference championship game. Like, that's asinine in my estimation. Now, before we move on, because I know these came out on Tuesday and it's, you know, Thursday or whenever you listen to this on the podcast, could be Friday, Saturday, whatever. I don't give a shit. But we actually are, I think, going to be doing a show on Saturday. So we might have a Brunching with the Boys show coming up on Saturday.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, I'm excited about that one.
Whole game day vibe preview. Like,
yes, the same exact vibe. We need the dude with the Wazoo flag who shows up every time, you know, the whole thing. We'll have somebody else with a Mox flag out there, or a Vols or a Bulldogs or something along those lines. But I want to do a little exercise with you. I didn't prep you for this. I'm literally just doing this off the top of my head, but you are a smart enough man when it comes to college football and just in general, especially with those glasses tonight. You just look extra smart. So
I'm trying to avoid this glare, but it's like, it's killing me. Like, there's nothing, I can't do anything about it. Like,
no, it is what it is. You got to be able to see, you know?
Yeah.
I don't want you to have a migraine.
Yeah.
So
contacts suck, man. They suck.
Yeah, no, I've had many problems, like physically in my life, especially with my back, but knock on wood, the one thing that I do not have a problem with is my eyeballs.
Yeah.
So I am very blessed and thankful for that.
Yeah.
So here's the exercise I want to do. No, you're good. Here's the
go
exercise I want to do. I want you to make up what the college football playoff rankings should be based on the bracket, things like that. Can you do that for me right now? Like, can you come up with,
just off the cuff,
how you believe the team should be ranked?
So, couple of questions.
Using whatever logic you want.
Using the current format we have. So, how I think these teams should be ranked 1 through 12 or whatever.
You use the logic that you want to use. Whatever you think is the fairest. I'm just running off camera real quick because I want to write this down and I want to get a pen. So you think about it for a sec, filibust, and I'll be right back.
Okay. Well, I'm assuming he's wanting to use the same format that we have now, and not, because if it was up to me, we would have never done the auto bid thing. I'm just going to go ahead and throw that out there. We would have just picked the top 12 teams and we'd have just run with it. But building this off of the top 12 teams that we have so far, man, I think I'd keep Oregon and Ohio State at 1 and 2.
Okay.
Oregon to me.
OSU.
Yep. Oregon to me seems like they've been wire to wire the best team. So that would, if you're filling out the bracket though, that would put Oregon at the 1 seed and Ohio State at the 5 seed, technically, because Ohio State would be ranked behind Oregon because Oregon would be the first round bye team.
So do you want to do it like that?
Yeah, I think you should. If you're wanting to fill out a bracket, yeah, you should do it like that.
Okay. OSU is going to be 5. Got it.
Yep. Gosh, I really want to knock Texas.
You should.
I really want to knock Texas. But here's the problem with this logjam at 3, 4, and 5 is Texas, they got absolutely drubbed by the best team they've played this year. And behind that, their only win. Yes. But behind that, their best win is Vanderbilt. They have a chance for a really good win coming up with Texas A&M, but we're not there yet. I also struggle to rank Penn State over Texas because Penn State's in a very similar scenario to Texas, where they've played a bunch of, I don't want to say bad teams, but they've played a bunch of probably average to good teams, and they got dubbed at home. They didn't get beat as bad as Texas did, but they got dubbed at home by the best team they've played this year in Ohio State. So for me, I'd probably do Texas as the 2 seed. Just leave them there because that'll work itself out. Okay. That will play itself out with them playing in the SEC title game and then playing Texas A&M and things like that. Where I would differ is I would probably move Indiana up over Penn State. Over Penn State. Yeah.
What?
So Indiana wouldn't be the 3 seed or the 4 seed because they can't, because they're not a conference champion. But if that moves them down to the 6 seed, I would put Indiana at the 6 seed over Penn State.
Okay, fair.
Simply
just
because
knowing what we know right now, because they have not yet played Ohio.
Because they have not played Ohio State yet.
Yes.
Okay. And we'll get into our predictions for we're about to get into our predictions for that game. But just from what we've seen this year, Indiana, I would have them over Penn State because they're undefeated, and Penn State doesn't, like, the only thing that Penn State has can hang their hat on versus Indiana is like we played Ohio State close. It's like, well, if we're having to justify that you played Ohio State close, that doesn't exactly sell it for me. So they have Notre Dame ranked 6th.
Okay, so you got Indiana 6, and you're going to have Penn State at 7?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yep.
Gotcha.
I'd have Penn State at 7. So my conference champions would be Oregon, Texas, Miami, and I'm gonna give it to
Colorado.
I'm gonna give it to Colorado.
Ooh.
Yeah, because I think, and we'll get into it a little bit because we're going to cover the BYU Arizona State game, but I think Colorado is going to ultimately end up winning the Big 12, and I think they'll end up getting that 4th seed as a first round bye. So my top 4 seeds are Oregon, Texas, Miami, and Colorado. The 5th conference champion, I think, will be Boise State. I think so. They would take that 12th seed.
All right, we're gonna put them in the 12th spot.
Yep.
Okay.
So then we'd have 5 being Ohio State, 6 being Indiana, 7 being Penn State, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So then I would bring in this log jam of SEC teams. Then I would bring in, and you can justify these in any way, shape, or form you want to because they've all kind of beaten each other. Yeah. I would probably put, I'll probably just stick with the way that they've got it and do Alabama.
No, you put it the way you see it. I don't want to put it the way they see it. I want Joseph's.
Okay.
If you truly think Georgia is the best team of the bunch, put them at 8.
Well, if we're doing resumes, Georgia has probably the best win of that group with the win over Texas and at Texas.
Perfect. Put them at 8 then.
So I'd put Georgia behind Indiana.
So you're going to put them at 7.
Yeah.
Okay, we're moving Penn State down.
Yep.
Okay, UGA is at 7.
Then right behind Georgia, I would have Ole Miss.
Ole Miss.
Yeah, because they did dub up Georgia, but they do have their two losses to me are worse than Georgia's two losses. I know Georgia did lose to Ole Miss, but that's on the road in their building. Ole Miss lost at home to Kentucky and on the road to LSU, and we've seen LSU kind of just got dubbed up by Florida.
Yeah.
So that's why I would slot Georgia over Ole Miss, and then behind Ole Miss, I would have Alabama.
Okay.
I'd put Bama there because the way that they absolutely just destroyed LSU, I feel like they've leaned into their identity, and I feel like they're playing football, a very high level of football, and Jalen Milroe looks like he's kind of back, but we'll see. How many slots do I have left to work with?
2, 10 and 11.
2? Okay. So
you got Penn State. Penn State, Tennessee.
I'm going to be honest
Notre
with you,
Dame.
Okay. I'm going to do – so give me Penn State in that next slot.
At 10.
Yep. And then in the 11 spot, give me Tennessee. I'm bumping Notre Dame out, man.
F the Irish.
I just – you can't lose at home. You can't lose at home to the 7th best team in the MAC.
No, you cannot.
You just can't do it. When if Notre Dame had – I know they have the win over A&M, but you got dubbed up at home by the Northern Illinois Huskies, who are not even a good G5 team.
I was going to say, if they were the best team in their conference, okay, maybe.
If they were Boise State, I'd be like, you know what, man?
Well, of course. I mean, but truth be known, they're not Boise State. But if they're the best team in the MAC?
Yeah. If they were the best team in the MAC, then I'd be a little more forgiving.
Yeah.
But they're not. And I'm good. I've said it over and over and over again. I'm going to hold that loss against Notre Dame. I'm going to hold that against you because it's egregious. And to me, you haven't done anything else the rest of the year outside of what you did in the opening week to beat Texas A&M. You haven't put yourself on the line the rest of the rest of these teams have. So I'm gonna bump out. I'm gonna put Notre Dame at my first team out right now. And so that would give me Oregon, Texas, Miami, and Colorado, my top 4 seeds. Then Ohio State, Indiana, UGA, Ole Miss, Bama, Penn State, Tennessee, and Boise. Yeah. That sounds electric. That sounds electric to me. And Notre Dame fans can be mad if they want to. All I have to say to that is don't lose at home to Northern Illinois.
Facts.
Because I see a lot of people, when they're looking at Lane Kiffin and they're saying, well, don't lose to Kentucky. You're telling me the Kentucky loss is worse than losing to Northern Illinois?
All right, so how would this work? We'd have Penn State versus Boise State. Or excuse me, Ohio State versus Boise State.
Yeah, you'd have Ohio State versus Boise State. Yep. 6 versus 11.
Indiana versus Tennessee would be awesome.
Indiana would be hosting that game, by the way.
I know.
Yeah.
But I mean, still a chance to beat up on Indiana, maybe put them in their place a little bit, show that the SEC power. I like that. And then Georgia versus Penn State. Shut up those Nittany Lions and take it to them at home, get a home game.
Yep. Yep.
And then Ole Miss Bama. I mean, that would be awesome. Who wouldn't want to see Ole Miss Bama?
I mean,
Lane train against this old squad. That would be awesome. You're right. That would be Electric City, baby.
It'd be better than watching Ole Miss or Bama play Notre Dame.
Exactly.
So
100%. I'm with it. Hit us up in the comments if you have any thoughts on the college football playoff. But I really think we got something here. I think we need to maybe make this a Substack, and you need to jot this down before Saturday.
Yeah. You mean explain to everybody why I'm being a Notre Dame hater? Because I will.
Yes. Well, I know you will. I know you will. You can put pen on paper or keys on, fingers on keyboard. Mm-hmm. And I think what we should do starting this week is we should have a Joseph Guthrie college football real playoff rankings. And you adjust them based on how it goes.
I mean, if we're doing real JG playoff rankings, we
Yes.
ain't doing auto bids.
Well, no shit. But
I know
we have to
yeah,
kind
I know.
of,
Yeah.
the
We have to
constraints.
play the system that we were given. So
Yes. But I want you to play it the way that you see it. So I love that exercise. I'm a big fan of that. Again, hit us up with your comments on the college football playoff. Did Jay get it right? Did he get it wrong? What do you think about it? All the rankings, all that good stuff. With that being said, we have no score in Thursday Night Football. It's a bit of a slot fest out there. I'm hoping Chris Boswell will kick this 40-some-odd yard field goal here because Joseph basically made me play Chris Boswell today when I was not going to play him anywhere.
Hang on now.
You did. You convinced me to play Chris Boswell. You gave me the vote of confidence that I needed to stick. Yes, he did make it. There we go. Thank you, Jay. 3 claps one time for my man, Joseph Guthrie. I'm glad he made that. And we need more of that because playoff time is coming around for college football playoffs. Excuse me, for the fantasy playoffs. Anyways, so core 4 games. We've got 4 really good ones for you. And let's get into it real hot and heavy. We're going to start out with 2 teams we just talked a lot about, Indiana and Ohio State. This is a really interesting one because, look, Ohio State has already lost 1 time this year, a close game to Oregon. Indiana undefeated. This is the big game on their schedule. Basically, with what you're saying, Joseph, the way that I am reading these rankings, even if Indiana loses this game, and we'll say they lose it by 10 or less, that they will still get into the playoff.
No.
They will not.
If Indiana loses this game, and I mean they could lose by a last-second field goal, to me they're out.
Okay.
They don't have a win, in my opinion, that warrants them getting in over some of these other teams that have had to play much harder schedules. So for me, this is for me in Indiana's case, this is a must-win game.
1 game season. It's kind of crazy that it comes down to that, but that's kind of where we're at right now. And this game
it's rough, but it is what it is.
It's in Columbus, and that's going to be a really, really big game. I had a couple of different things here I want to talk about with this game, and on the Ohio State side, we already know Seth McLaughlin is going to be out, their center. That's going to be huge. They're already missing another piece of the offensive line as well. So when it comes to Indiana, can they get pressure? Who is going to step up along that offensive line for the Buckeyes? I was listening to something earlier today. Carson Hensman, who's their left, plays on the left side of the line. He played center all of last season. They're thinking he might get a chance to get switched over to center. He's obviously got the experience. That'll be big. But again, he hasn't played there all year. If they do decide to go with him in that slot, that might be a spot where Indiana, because again, he's not playing there for a reason this year. So that might be a spot where Indiana can take advantage along that offensive line. And that is the one thing that really worries me in this game that could potentially put Ohio State. I'm going to kind of just throw it out there. I'm picking Ohio State, but the one thing that can throw a wrench in all of that is if the offensive line is just absolutely terrible. If Indiana's defense is able to create all kinds of havoc for Will Howard in the backfield, like live in the backfield, kind of the way that Florida did to LSU last week, that can throw a big time wrench into this game. And that, to me, is the way that Indiana is going to upset Ohio State, because pound for pound on paper, Ohio State's a better program. They are a better team. They have a better defense. They have a better skill position players. They're a better program, in my opinion. But I'm still going to pick Ohio State.
No, I respect it, and I don't think that's exactly a dangerous take to say that they're a better program, because they are. They're
it's
Ohio
not.
State.
It's a very safe take. You're right.
Yeah, they are. I mean, they recruit better. They have been way more consistent. Some people would probably tell you they don't have a better head coach. I bet some Ohio State fans would probably take Kurt Signetti.
I was just kind of thinking
that's a whole nother conversation. Where this comes down for me is I'm very curious how, I don't know how much to take away from the Michigan game, because that was Indiana playing I believe their 5th or 6th game in a row at that point. And then now they're coming off a bye. playing at Ohio State, but Michigan was able to kind of hold that offense in check. Indiana is currently averaging 43.9 points per game, which is really, really good until you take a bit of a deeper look and you realize who they've played. They have played the 73rd ranked scoring defense, 94th, 59th, 34th, 32nd, and 45th ranked scoring defense. And I know the Michigan defense is ranked 45th. That would probably be a little bit higher if their offense had any kind of pulse or any kind of consistent ability to move the ball. So I think the Michigan defense, being 45th is a bit of an outlier because they just are just anemic on offense. So their defense happened to be on the field more. Yeah. So I'm very curious how Indiana fares in terms of moving the ball on a consistent basis against Ohio State. I think this is going to be a game where Indiana has to take full advantage of every possession that they get. You can't afford to waste possessions because I think Ohio State's going to be able to move the ball on you a little more consistently than any other team that you've played has. I think their defense currently ranks 7th in scoring defense, giving up like 15 points per game. But the highest ranked scoring offense they have played is Maryland. And I had them just here for a second. Maryland's ranked like outside. I think they're I lost them. They're like outside the top 50 in scoring offense. So you haven't exactly played somebody that has a pulse on offense either. So I'm worried about that for Indiana. I'm worried about them, especially if they come out and the offense kind of sputters and the defense has to play multiple possessions back to back to back. Man, I wanted to try to find a way to pick Indiana. I wanted to try to find a way for Curtis Rourke and Curt Cignetti to win this game. But ultimately, I think Ohio State at the end of the day is just going to be too good. I think that the depth that they have is going to shine through. I could see this game being close going into halftime. Maybe Ohio State's up by 7 or up by 3 or maybe even down by 7. But going into the second half, I think it's going to be tough for Indiana to just last the whole game. So I'm going to pick Ohio State to win. I don't think they're going to blow Indiana out. But give me Ohio State by like 10.
Yeah, that feels right. Look, I want to give Indiana some of their flowers. Like Curtis Rourke has been really good. He processes info really, really quickly. He throws guys open. He's been doing that a lot. His anticipation is good. He'll need to kind of create some of those same plays against a better defense in Ohio State, kind of like you were just detailing. And I just don't think that he'll be able to do that against Ohio State. I don't think he's going to be able to have the same level of success that he's had throughout the entirety of the season against a better quality of opponent. And then on the other side, Will Howard, I know their schedule hasn't been an absolute gauntlet, but they've played Iowa, who's generally a good defense. They scored 35 against them. And Will Howard is second in completion percentage. He's third in passing efficiency. He's got the ability to run a little bit. And, that could potentially be a factor within this game. And another thing from Will Howard that I'm kind of looking at that might make a big difference in this game is how will he be on deep passes? How will he be able to attack the secondary? How accurate will he be? Will he be able to connect on some of those deep shots with those incredibly talented wide receivers? I believe that he will. And I do believe that Ohio State's going to roll in this game. Like I think they could win by 10 to 14 points. As that's kind of the range I would kind of put them in this one.
Yeah. Yeah, and I ended up finding it while you were Maryland was ranked 79th in scoring offense. Nice. And that's the best scoring offense that Indiana's played. So I think it might be a rude awakening for Hoosier fans on Saturday.
Yeah, I love Curt Cignetti and everything that they've done this season. They've sunk in some time and some effort and some resources into the football program, which I love. They're getting a bigger assistant coaches, salary pool to pay, a little bit better to assistant coaches, which I think is fantastic. Being an assistant coach myself, I know how valuable that we actually are, as many people don't want to even, say. But just throwing that out there. Anyways. So yeah, they're upgrading the facilities. They're doing a lot of good stuff out there in Indiana. It's more than just a basketball school at this point now. It's kind of like It's kind of like where Kentucky had been when Stoops took over and how he's made them into more of a football program. Now, have they been fantastic over the last couple of years? No, but they've been much more respectable than where they've been in the past. And I think that's where Indiana's going, and they're trying to make some noise. And they're not going to make noise every single year, but they're making noise this year. And if you want to make some real noise, find a way to upset upset Ohio State. That would be huge if they can find a way to go into Columbus and win that game.
Yeah, Buckeye Twitter would implode. It would just be like, it would be an all-time Twitter scroll that night. I mean, an all-time Twitter scroll at 3:30 in the afternoon, because every game Ohio State plays is at noon.
That kind of sucks.
It's horrible. It's awful. It's awful. I see people attacking Joel Klatt for it. Guys, it's not Joel's fault. Like,
blame Joel and blame Gus. Blame those guys.
If you want to get mad at anybody, get mad at the old Big Ten commissioner, because he's the one that negotiated this deal.
Big Noon Saturday.
He's the one that screwed you over. So that's who Ohio State fans should be mad at, is the old Big Ten commissioner, because he's the one that negotiated this deal, signed it, and now you have Ohio State playing, I believe, was 6 straight noon games.
That just sucks for their fans. Like, I would want to get lubricated throughout the day first before and go to a game at like 3:30.
Yeah.
Or at 7:00.
Yeah.
You know?
It also prevents Penn State from ever doing a whiteout game against Ohio State. Like, they just can't, because they can only get one whiteout game a year for some reason. I believe it has something to do with some hockey team. I read through the article, and it's been a minute, but they only get one whiteout game a year, but then the Ohio State game's always at noon. So
I don't know, Jay. It's weird. Anyways, we're both on Ohio State against Indiana. Let's continue to roll. Our next game up is BYU versus Arizona State. You and I were talking about this game off the air a little bit. It's probably my favorite game of the week, honestly. There's, just kind of doing some extra research on it today leading up to the show. Like, it just got me more hyped. And shout out to my man, Max Chadwick of Pro Football Focus, because I was listening to some of his preview and stuff like that. It was awesome. And love what they do over at Pro Football Focus. Check them out if you have not. Free plug for them. But give me your thoughts on this one. Both teams ranked. This is, obviously major implications when it comes to the Big 12 championship game, because whoever wins this game is basically going to put themselves in it.
Yeah, they're pretty much stamping their seal of approval into the
punch the ticket,
game. Punching it, baby, heading that way. No, man, Arizona State is one of those teams that it doesn't feel like they should, and I think it's fair to say it doesn't feel like they should be here. I mean, they're dealing with all the NCAA sanctions and everything that happened with the past administration. And Kenny Dillingham, has a good season as Oregon's OC and takes the head coaching job at his alma mater. And here they are at 8-2 and very much alive in the Big 12 title race. And their quarterback Sam Levitt's been pretty solid. 7.9 yards per attempt, 16 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. The fan favorite is Mr. Scatabo himself, Cameron Scatabo. 5.8 yards per carry, 9 touchdowns, only 1 fumble, over 1,000 yards rushing on the season. Man, this is going to be an incredible atmosphere. I believe this game's sold out in Tempe. I think it's already sold out. But I was worried about BYU until they lost the Kansas game, because it seemed like, they had the real close game with Oklahoma State, and then they had the UCF game where they weren't favored, but they ended up beating UCF. Then they win the 1-point game in the Holy War that a lot of people thought maybe you should have lost this game, and then you finally catch it to Kansas. Man, I really think Arizona State's going to find a way to win this game, because watching them play, man, they fight. They fight, and they're physical, and they're going to be juiced up. And I just think if they were having to head out to Provo, I might feel a little bit different. But I think Cam Scatterbo is going to roll all over BYU. And I think Arizona State's going to put themselves in a prime position to go play in the Big 12 title game. I think BYU is kind of getting to the point where this, the season was great. The 9-0 run was awesome. And then you lost to Kansas. And it feels kind of like BYU might be running out of gas to me a little bit. So I think for that reason, I'm going to take Arizona State at home, man.
I love
Fighting
it.
Kenny Dillingham's, brother.
I love it. Hey, that's just one game that I'm going to get up on you. So I'm excited that you took Arizona State. Love that. Well, let me break it down a little bit before I tell you why BYU is going to win this game. So let's talk a little bit about Arizona State. Some things that I've learned about Arizona State is that, look, even if they win this game, they are not an absolute lock for the Big 12 title game. There's a lot of different tiebreakers that would need to come into play. But if they do win this game, they're virtually a lock for the Big 12 title game. I just want to throw that out there. But you mentioned Sam Leavitt. Man, he's been so good. Dude's been on fire over these last 5 games. Since week 6, he has a 90 passing grade, according to Pro Football Focus. He made, in the last game, only 2 turnover-worthy throws and plays. So he's been smart with the football. He's been protecting the football. He can throw from different platforms. He can move a little bit. He can throw on the run. He's good at getting outside the pocket, navigating the pocket and whatnot too. So he's just been really good to watch. Jordan Tyson, he's been a really good wide receiver for them as well, main weapon. And if BYU wants to go man-to-man, God bless their soul, they are going to get torched by those 2 guys. Not a good idea. Don't do it, Mormon power. Do not go man-to-man. Play some zone. Throw some different things at them. And for the defense, they need to get pressure. Because if you look at BYU and you look at Jake Retzlaff, he has got an 83 Pro Football Focus grade for passing this season, for the season. He is great, phenomenal when the offensive line gives him time and is kept clean. He's like a 90 grade. And we're talking the numbers here, I know, and grades and whatnot. But when he's blitzed and when he's pressured, that grade falls dramatically. I'm talking a 43.5 and a 58. They need to protect Retzlaff at all costs. And the 2 wide receivers, Chase Roberts and Darius Lassiter, are awesome as well. Those guys have been great. They're weapons for him, the whole thing. And I would be with you, Joseph. If Arizona State was good at getting pressure at all, because clearly pressure affects and breaks the pipes of Jake Retzlaff. But fortunately for him, Arizona State is has the second worst pass rush grade in all of college football.
Oof.
And the 3rd worst pressure win rate. They don't blitz, they don't rush the passer, and when they do, they don't even win. So to me, I know the Mormons are on the road. Tempe's going to be bumping out there. I think an afternoon game, 3:30
I think it's
time?
a 3:30 Eastern, I believe.
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah. So give me BYU. I think last week, Retzlaff talked about it. They did not have a good week of practice. Maybe that's the kick in the ass that they needed in order for them to really wake up and say, all right, hey, look, we slipped a little bit, but we still have an opportunity to get to a Big 12 title game and still have an opportunity to win and get in. We control our own destiny still, even with that loss. And the Big 12 has become now a 1-bid league. Whoever wins that conference championship game is going, and everybody else is going to get left to the Big Al's used car bowl or the Cheez-It bowl or
Pop-Tart bowl, baby.
Pop-Tart bowl, the Dunkaroos bowl, whatever it may be at this point, the Fruity Pebbles bowl. But yeah, no, I'm a rolling with BYU. Just simply because I don't think Arizona State is going to be able to get pressure as much as they need to on Retzlaff, and Retzlaff is going to be able to beat them. And I know this game's at home, and I know that Arizona State has only lost 2 games, and they've both been on the road this year. They have protected their home field, but BYU is going to put a little blemish on that record. Plain and simple, BYU is a better team, and they're going to win the football game. They're going to find a way to win that game on the road on Saturday afternoon.
Either way, it's going to be electric. It's going to be.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
I mean, we're talking about potentially could be game of the weekend here, so cannot wait to get my eyes the Cougars and Sun Devils.
Yeah, another game in the Big 12 that we're keeping our eye on in terms of the core four. And if you want to chime in and give us your thoughts on any of these games, who you're going to pick to win, what you think of them, please jump in the comments and hit us up. Let us know what you think when it comes to these core four games, who you got, why, all that good stuff. The next game, Colorado at Kansas. Obviously, this is going to have major implications for the Big 12 title game as well. Colorado's been rolling. Kansas just came off that win, upset win against BYU. And for my money, Jay, I think that was the win of the year for Kansas. Neon Dion, Shador, Shiloh, Travis Hunter, they are going to roll into Kansas and beat up on the Jayhawks. I don't think this one's going to be particularly close. I'm going Colorado big time in this one.
I'm with you. I'm on Colorado as well. Kansas is one of those teams that was a trendy dark horse pick in the Big 12 and a trendy dark horse playoff team coming in because of what Jalen Daniels had looked like. But he comes in this year and it's just can't get it figured out. They start 1-5 and they kind of bounce around, win, loss, win. They've ripped off 2 back-to-back and Jalen Daniels looks like he's seeming to figure it out. But I think that train stops this weekend. I'm going to roll with the Buffs as well. Give me Shador and Travis to absolutely have some ridiculous stats put up in this game because Kansas is 72nd in scoring defense. They are 86th in passing yards per game. That is not a good look, Chief. And they're also they're 73rd in rush yards per game. So defense all around. I mean, if I have to pick, I don't think Jalen Daniels is going to have enough success against Colorado's defense to be able to keep them in this game. And Travis is going to eat.
Travis sure will, and should be a fun one for the Buffs out there in Kansas, I'm hoping. All right, let's go to the last one. The triple option Army squad will take on Notre Dame. I'm going to let you roll on this one first because I know Notre Dame's just your favorite team.
Yeah, man. I've never asked Jeff Monken to do anything for me in his entire life.
You haven't?
But Jeff, I am asking you to do one thing for me, and that is to go into South Bend and to just get these frauds out, get them out of consideration. I mean, I'll tell you one thing that kind of makes me a little bit. Okay, let me just get this out there. Ultimately, I'm going to pick Notre Dame because I don't know if Army. I don't know. I don't feel great about trying to pick a triple option team to win a big game like this. But I'll tell you one thing that does make me a little bit hesitant when I pick that is Notre Dame's rush defense is 39th with averaging 126 yards per game. They're giving up on the ground. So if you mix that in with the fact that they're probably going to want to run Riley Leonard and you're already playing a triple option team, possessions are going to come at a premium in this game. At least it feels like to me they are. So if Army can take advantage of that and they can take advantage of the few possessions that they get and somehow come up with maybe just like a stop or two against Notre Dame, they could ultimately end up finding a way to win this game. It'd probably be somewhere in the realm of 17 to 20-ish. I think if this game's played in the low teens, maybe low 20s, like 23 at the max, Army has a good chance. If this game gets up into the 30s, I think if Notre Dame breaks 30, they're going to win. So I'm a little. I don't feel great about it. But I will say Army is second in the nation in scoring defense, giving up about 10.8 points per game. They are number 1 in rush defense, giving up 71.4 yards on the ground. But they are 40th in pass defense. So I think if it comes down to it and Notre Dame actually has to, they will be able to find some success through the air. But so for that reason, man, give me Notre Dame. I've never cheered more for a team that I am picking against but I've never wanted to be more wrong in my entire life about
I don't know
picking
if
Notre
that's
Dame.
true. Oh, okay.
That's,
Just Notre Dame, yes.
yeah. Army, I would love for you to do this for me, but I don't think you're going to. So give me the Fighting Irish. I absolutely love Marcus Freeman. I do. I know what it comes off as a Notre Dame hater, but I love Marcus Freeman. And when he got hired, I was like, man, I actually might find myself cheering for Notre Dame a little bit now. But don't lose at home to Northern Illinois, dog. So
handsome son of a gun for sure, Marcus
yes,
Freeman. But
yes.
Man, Army has only given up more than 14 points once all season to East Carolina. 28 points gave up to East Carolina. Joseph, that triple option can be tricky.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes hard to defend. As you mentioned,
can be a pain.
Can be a pain. Can grind you down. Can eat up clock. Yes, we said clock. And Riley Leonard, he's not the most prolific passer. Notre Dame's strength is on the ground with their two running backs. Between those guys, they got 25 touchdowns. Riley Leonard, through the air, is accounted for 12. If you're doing the math at home, that's about half. With all that being said, Notre Dame's a better program. They're going to win.
Damn it.
But I hope I'm wrong like you. I hope.
Dude, I'm gonna be honest with you. If you would have done it, I would have flipped my pick. I was waiting. I was like, you know what? If he's doing it, if he's on this train, if he's on Army, if he's riding with the servicemen, I'm gonna pull one of these commitments and I'm gonna ditch the hat and pick up the other hat and put it on and be like, go Army, baby. But
do you want a team sweat Army?
Do I want a team sweat Army?
Like me and you. Do you want to flip our script and you want to pick Army? I would have no problem.
Is that how you really feel? Like, okay, because I'm fighting myself right now between how I really feel and what I want to happen. Like, that's where this pick has come down for me.
Yeah.
Because what I really feel like Notre Dame's going to win this game. I do. Like, I don't see Army actually being able to pull off the upset, but I really want them to. I really, really want them to. And that might be taboo. That might like you shouldn't say that, but I'm just telling you how I feel.
Yeah.
And man, I'm picking Notre Dame. But man, I am cheering for Army.
I hate a triple option team. Like, it's so I hate it.
Mm-hmm.
It's such ugly football. I just don't like it. Bryson Daly's, I mean, he's obviously, like, for a triple option quarterback, has had a fantastic season. Dude has thrown just 51 pass attempts, but he's racked up 644 yards. And
12.6 an attempt, man.
It's insane. It's just because it's such a surprise whenever they do throw it. He just catches people off the guard.
Mm-hmm.
7 touchdowns and an interception, and then he's their leading rusher on 174 carries, over 1,000 yards. He's averaging over 6 yards a carry with 21 tugs. And then Kanye Udo, I mean, he's not bad as the running back as well. 128 carries, 850 yards, 6.5 yards a tote, and 9 tugs. Like, they've got some dudes over there.
Yeah.
Especially on offense. But yeah, it's just...
Army has a chance, man. I just don't.
They sure do. They're just going into South Bend. I really just believe that Notre Dame's a better team. As much as I want them to be fraudulent like you. And we're going to kick ourselves on Monday if they do find a way to win and beat Notre Dame. But yes, I do believe Notre Dame's going to win.
Yeah, I'm
Well, speaking about flipping the script, something we forgot to talk about earlier, but how about Bryce Underwood? For a little bit of cash. As they say, money talks, Jay.
It does, man. The hometown hero, Bryce Underwood, has decided to stay home. If you have not watched his commitment video for Michigan, it's probably one of the better ones out there. I watched it right before we started the show. Absolutely huge get for Michigan. and Sharon Moore, because right now that team has no identity on offense, and it has no identity because they don't know who they want to start at quarterback. There was a guy that I was hoping would get some playing time. It's a guy named Jaden Davis. He signed with Michigan, I believe, last year, so he's a true freshman. I was kind of shocked that he didn't get any time at all, or at least from what I've seen. I have not seen him on the field, but I think it'll be different with Bryce. I think Sharon will do what Billy's done, and Bryce will be, he'll get toted out there sometime next year. And ultimately, this is probably going to be what defines Sharon Moore at Michigan. If Bryce Underwood can play or not. Because if he ends up being a hit, Michigan will probably find some success. And if he doesn't, or Sharon Moore somehow mishandles this situation, then he's probably not going to stay the coach of the Wolverines. So absolutely massive pickup for Michigan. But we'll see what other pieces this leads to, because he's going to need some guys around him. Bryce isn't going to be able to do it all by himself.
No, he's not. It's a great start though. But what, as they say, as I mentioned before, like money talks. And what did he get? Like they're working on a package for him for like $10 million in NIL money.
$10 million over 4 years, supposedly. I don't know. I don't actually know the figures.
That's what's being reported. I've seen that too. That's what's being reported. Yep. So that's what we can go off of. That is what's being
reported. So that is the speculation, is that he was offered, I think, 10.5 over 4 years.
Who knows what kind of Jeremy Pruitt shit's going on behind the scenes, and what kind of, Hardee's and Carl's Jr. bags or whatever it may be, or your favorite.
No telling how much of that money is Dave Portnoy's. So.
Oh, very, very good point. Very good point. Could be the king of Barstool. Yeah.
He did come out earlier this year on Twitter, and he put out a tweet, and I don't remember exactly what it said, but more along the lines, he was like, "Don't worry, Michigan fans, I'll fix this." And he had mentioned or referenced, buying a quarterback, and looks like Dave offered up some of his own money.
Why can this be allowed to happen? Why can this be allowed to happen?
Just the state of the game right now.
Oh my gosh. I was going to bring this up yesterday when we were all talking about college football and NIL money and how crazy it's getting right now. It's like pay for play, all that good stuff. And don't get me wrong. I do like the pay to play players. I do get it. I like that it's a business. It's always, college athletics has always been sort of a dirty business to a certain degree, and we're just sort of trying to legitimize it a little bit. But I do believe that there's a better way you can go about this, and they just sort of open Pandora's box without really much guidelines or many constraints. And so for me, these kids get all this money. There is in no way, shape, or form should they get all of this money like in some sort of lump sum. Like this needs to go in like some sort of a, hey, you get X amount of this now, and the rest of it, like, put it somewhere that you can't touch until you are out of college, or if there is some sort of emergency that you absolutely need this money for, like something along those lines. There needs to be some more constraints on it.
Well, yeah. Well, as we have revenue sharing's coming, it's happening. So that will change the fabric of, how players are recruited and how players are paid, and it'll get more structured and organized. It's just gonna take some time to get there. But revenue sharing is coming down the pipe, so there is that, to keep in mind as we watch these kids. Yeah, and by no means this isn't Bryce's fault. Secure your bag, young man. Like you make your money, brother. You do your thing. But it's going to get to a point where this is going to be a bit more regulated, and it's going to make more sense. So it's just going to take a little bit to get there. So
I sure hope so. I don't mean to backtrack, but we're talking about all this stuff, and I put something in our group chat earlier today when it comes to Ohio State, Indiana, and I wanted to throw it at you. I wanted to see how it fit. See what you thought about it. Did you get a chance to watch it?
No, I didn't get a.
Oh, okay. You're getting this fresh then. Hear me out. I think this was on something on Barstool. Might have been part of my take, something along those lines. But this dude was an Ohio State fan who threw this scenario out there. I don't know what his name is. I wish I could give him credit, but all I know, Barstool. I'm going to give them credit. In any world, would it make sense for Indiana to just forfeit this game against Ohio State? Because instead of potentially getting blown out and having a real bad loss, you forfeit it. Technically, it goes down as a 1-0 loss.
No, I don't think so. I think you take the chance and you play this game.
I'm not being obviously this is not a serious scenario. You're taking this really seriously. Sure. I thought you were gonna have fun with this.
Oh no, hell no, dude!
Like in no way is Indiana ever going to do that.
You play this game because as Kurt Cignetti, you play this game because at Kurt Cignetti, you want the chance to one up Ohio State. And he, in his speech at the basketball game where he was like, Purdue sucks, Michigan sucks, Ohio State sucks. Like, you want to be able at the end of the season to be like, I went out here and I told you to Google me. And I went out here on the basketball court and I said, all these programs suck. And then I beat them back to back to back, like all in my first season. Yeah. You want the opportunity to do that. 1,000%.
Of course, you absolutely do that. That would be wild.
That's not where I was. That's not where I thought. That's not where I thought you were going. Because what I thought you were about to ask me was something that I actually had seen on social media right before we started, and it's something I want to ask you about.
Ooh.
Okay. If Ohio State loses, is Ohio State out? Take your time, because I have an answer for this. I have my answer for this. But I want to know your thoughts.
If they beat Michigan, no.
Okay.
Unless they get blown by Indiana.
Yeah.
If they get dog walked on their home field against Indiana, yeah, get them out of here. Like, they don't deserve to be in there.
I think, and there's a certain fan base that's going to absolutely hate this, but I think if Ohio State loses, I'm out.
I know. I was trying to get you as the main picture.
Oh, you're good.
I didn't want to be the main picture. I wanted you to be the main picture. There you go.
You're good. So I think, and I'm fully prepared to catch the absolute just torching from what I'm about to say. But I think if Ohio State loses this game, Penn State's out. And not Ohio State. Even with Ohio State having 2 losses, you have a 1-point loss on the road to Oregon. You have a win that you can hang your hat on, and you went to Penn State and beat them on their home field. Penn State doesn't have that. They don't have that win to hang their hat on and be like, well, we did this. It's like, Penn State, what did you do over the course of the season? It's like, well, you beat Illinois. Congratulations. You beat USC. You beat Washington. So did Indiana. You beat Purdue. We're assuming at this point, so did Indiana. I think if Ohio State loses, Penn State would get left out for Ohio State. Even with them being a 2-loss Big Ten team. Unless Penn State beat Indiana in the Big Ten title, or beat Oregon in the Big Ten title, or beat whoever they played in the Big Ten title. Well, no, they wouldn't play in the Big Ten title game. Penn State wouldn't play in the Big Ten title game at that point because it would be Indiana and Oregon. So Penn State would be sitting at home, and they would get absolutely screwed because Ohio State lost.
I agree with that, actually.
By no means am I saying that should happen. Like, I'm not pulling for that. I'm not telling you that's how it should be. Like, but I think that's what would happen. I think Penn State would get absolutely screwed.
I don't think that would even be a screwing. Like, that would be a just thing. Like, it never would happen, but like, that would be a just thing to have happen. Because the result of that game, it diminishes your only loss to Penn State, or excuse me, Ohio State.
Yep.
By them losing to Indiana, that
Yep.
great
At
loss
home.
is not as good anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Again, at home, as you mentioned, there would be no way on God's green earth that you could tell me that Penn State would then deserve to be in the college football playoff over a team like Tennessee.
Yeah, they would lose. They wouldn't have anything. They would not have any roster or any resume bolstering wins.
No, and that's the
Their
issue. Because
best
at least
win.
Tennessee can hang their hat on Alabama.
Yep. Penn State's best win is Illinois. A then ranked number 19 Illinois, who I don't believe is ranked currently. Yeah, they're ranked. No, okay, so they have a ranked win, a currently ranked win. I would give them credit for the ranked win over Illinois at the time, but that would be their signature resume bolstering win, is you beat Illinois, and it's like, well, we should get in over Ohio State. It's like Ohio State beat you.
Crazy.
I'm just saying. I got to thinking about it. About it when I was scrolling Twitter before the show, and I was like, you know who actually, because I saw they were interviewing Dan Mullen, and he had talked about, he's like, everybody's talking about how what happens to Indiana if Indiana loses, and he's like, what happens to Ohio State if Ohio State loses? And I got to thinking about it, and I'm like, what happens to Penn State if Ohio State loses?
Yeah.
Like that's who I immediately thought about. Is I was like, what happens to, because you're not in the Big Ten title game. You lost to the team that Indiana just beat. You don't get a chance to beat, you never got a chance to play Oregon. So you're on the outside looking in. And then it's your resume versus Ohio State. And Ohio State has the head-to-head. And their only losses are to what will have probably been 2 top 3 teams.
Yep.
Or top 5 teams at least. Because they'll drop, I don't know how far they would drop Ohio State, obviously if they lost to Indiana. But
anyways, looking at the rest of the slate for this week, there was another game or two that you kind of caught your attention.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about it.
Oh boy, the Lane Train and the Ole Miss Rebels are screaming into the swamp, man.
Shut your mouth. That was the game I wanted to talk about.
Noon game, baby. Oh, dude, this is perfect. Because
pound the table for Billy.
I think this is one of the, and with them having, if they didn't have DJ Lagway, this game wouldn't be on my radar. But having DJ Lagway back, that is a completely different team. That is a completely different team in terms of how you view them, how you rate them. They are a totally different. They might as well be wearing a different helmet and different uniforms and playing in a different location when DJ's starting versus when old buddy from Yale's starting. Sorry, I can't remember your name, brother. I promise it's not personal.
No, it's very personal. He hates you.
But fun fact about this game, in all time in the series, they're tied 12-12.
Wow.
12 wins for Ole Miss, 12 wins for Florida.
Okay.
Florida's on a 2-game win streak.
I love that.
The last 2 times they've played Ohio State. The last 2 times Florida's played Ole Miss. Still got Ohio State on the brain. They have won. But this game is going to determine who takes the lead in the series. It's 12-12.
This game's in the swamp.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, DJ Lagway makes all the difference. Elijah Badger, they got a couple of senior wide receivers out there that have been making a big difference. Jaden Ball, right? Jordan Ball. God, couldn't remember his name off the top of my head. J Ball.
Mm-hmm.
Been running well. Montrell Johnson is back. Maybe he'll get a little bit more workload in this game. I would not pick Florida to upset twice in as many weeks.
Yep.
I hope it happens. I hope the defense is able to go out there and DJ Lagway is able to pull some magic out of his bag. But this is and both teams want this. Obviously, Billy's obviously still got this team playing really, really hard.
Yeah.
But this game does mean more for Ole Miss. They need to win. If they lose this game, they're not in the college football playoff, correct?
Yeah. No, they're out. They're out. Plus, Ole Miss has kind of been a fiend on these noon games, dude. They absolutely dubbed up South Carolina 27-3, and then they just, I mean, went full scorched earth on Arkansas at noon. I
They
don't
sure
remember. I
did.
think the Kentucky game was at noon. I want to say it was. I don't remember off the top of my head if it was or not, but I want to say it was. So that's. But anyways, Ole Miss is coming in hot, and they have to win to keep their playoff hopes alive.
That game was at noon.
Yeah, it was. So
they didn't do well in that noon game.
they didn't do well in that noon game, but the last two they've played, they have absolutely gotten off hot starts. So I think. I mean, I know they're not in the core four, but if why not go ahead and throw out a winner here? I think Ole Miss is also going to take care of business in the Swamp.
Yeah, I love you, Billy, but you got your big win last week against LSU. You'll beat Florida State. You'll be bowl eligible, and all will be right with the world because you'll stay with it.
Yeah, they broke the streak. LSU had won, I think, 5 in a row up to that point. So,
yeah,
good for Billy and the boys, man.
Good for Billy and the boys, and us as well. Well, I'll be honest with you, I don't really have too much when it comes to the NFL this week. There's not a lot of good games. It's halftime right now. Browns are up 10-3. Very ugly game out there in Cleveland. They're just an ugly place. Some games that you would look at the schedule and you would think maybe these would be good games, going into the season. Maybe Anthony Richardson's really good and the Lions are good. We know that. Vikings Bears is interesting, kind of, but the Bears have been kind of sliding here lately. Cowboys Commanders. I would have thought it would be completely flipped. I would have thought that the Commanders would be 3-7 and the Cowboys would be at least 7-4. They would be the big team. And then the Texans and the Titans, battle for the top of the AFC South. But that game now sucks because Tennessee blows. The Raiders we knew were going to suck. Maybe that would have been a good game because maybe we thought the Broncos were going to be bad with Bo Nix. But the good games are actually in the late afternoon window. There's only 2 of them. Mm-hmm. Packers hosting the 49ers. And I'm not saying that because just being biased because I'm a Packers fan, but that is actually a good game because the 49ers have been struggling in the Packers. And we know Matt LaFleur generally struggles with the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan. Now, mostly it's in the playoffs. He's been able to beat them in the regular season, but the postseason has been bad. So the Packers, hosting the 49ers at 4:25. Cardinals, Seahawks, very intriguing game there. A lot of division implications. Obviously, the NFC West is just kind of weird this year. All the teams are bunched up right there, right around 500. And I'm kind of glad Seattle won that game last week against the 49ers because now it's all right, we're all kind of gummed up right in the middle, right around 500. So that's fun. And then, the Eagles and the Rams with the Rams on Sunday Night Football with all their pieces back with Matthew Stafford at the helm and Kyron Williams is awesome. That's a fun game where they'll probably give the Eagles a game. And then Monday Night Football is probably your game of the week with the Ravens heading to the Chargers. It's the Harbaugh Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
So those are just kind of my quick NFL thoughts. I don't know if I have really much left in the tank, but that's kind of one that I just wanted to throw out there NFL-wise because there are some intriguing games, but I feel like you can kind of skip the 1 o'clock slate this week because there's 6 teams on bye. The Falcons, the Bills, the Bengals, the Saints, the Jets, and the Jags.
Yeah. If I had to pick, I'd like to just see how Detroit looks coming off that absolutely just decimation of the Jags. Playing at the Colts, I'd just like to see how Detroit looks. They've been my most fun watch this season. So
we do know you love yourself some Ben Johnson.
Big fan.
Yeah, big fan. That's your boy.
Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Cincinnati.
Call him up.
Hey, Cincinnati.
Make him an offer.
Listen, you seen what he did with the Lions offense? Imagine what he could do with Joey B and Jamar. That's all I gotta say. That's all I gotta say.
As we've been saying, you just gotta get somebody to protect Joe Cool.
Yeah.
You do that, you'll be all right. With that being said, this has been a fun one. A lot of college football today. Obviously, we're coming off the Birmingham trip. We're here. We're the only ones, soldiering through. Miggy's still commuting back and forth, although I think Miggy was in Chattanooga today. I think I saw his Instagram, and he was in Chattanooga today. So that little scrub, not going to Knoxville today. It is what it is. But Chase and Garrett obviously on dad duty after yesterday's triumph. So we wish all the boys the best. But it's been fun hanging out with you, Jay, for this past hour and 20 minutes. A lot of good college football talk. And man, I can't wait for this weekend. We will post about it when it's officially official, but it's looking like Mike's hole in the wall Saturday morning. We're going to be out there. We're going to be brunching with the boys out at Mike's, and it'll be a fun time. Little college game day feel to it, where we're going to be getting into all of these games yet again, but on the day of the game, and hopefully with everybody. It'd be great to have everybody there. Like, if we could get everybody assembled, it would be like the end of Avengers Endgame. Just like
everybody comes to the war portal and yeah, be incredible.
Cap, are you there? Cap, are you there? It's Sam. On your left. Avengers, assemble! It'll be amazing. We'll hopefully it'll work out that way. But appreciate y'all sticking with us here tonight for this live show. And if you're listening on the podcast version, we really, really appreciate you doing so. Share it around as well. If you enjoy it, share it with your family and friends and whatnot. Like, give the gift of Chatted Up Sports. And maybe we'll hook you up with one of our sweet new hoodies at some point here in the near future. But Joseph, it's been fun, man. Always enjoy hanging out with you. It's great to see you 2 days in a row.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic. Say hi to Papa Guthrie for us.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
he's pondering around. Oh, look at the dog. Yes. Who's that?
That's Riley.
Riley making an appearance. One of my very first dog's name was Riley.
She's a turd. She's a big old turd, dude.
Yeah, Place. Come here, Come here. Place.
She's a sweet dog.
Yeah. A turd, but a sweet dog.
Yeah, turd, but a sweet dog.
All right, man. Well, enjoyed it. We'll catch you on Saturday for another edition of the show. Love hanging out with you. Always appreciate your football knowledge and just you as a human being.
Hell yeah, brother. It's always a good time.
Well, for Joseph Guthrie, I am Greg Larnard. It's been an honor and a privilege to talk sports with you here today. We appreciate you being here. Remember, follow us all over social media: TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all of the good places. LinkedIn if you're for the professional shorties as well. Follow us all over there and find us wherever you get your podcasts. We appreciate it. Peace and love. Just be a good person. Have a great weekend. We're going to be back for Thanksgiving. Holidays right around the corner. Be grateful for everything that you have in your life. It's always a great thing to start your day with gratitude. So if you're listening to this at night, start the next day with some gratitude. We love y'all and appreciate y'all being here. Peace and love.